This is Rebecca Olkowski with babyboomster.com, and I'm interviewing Sherry Ward. She's proving that it's never too late in life to take on new challenges. She's created a successful publishing house and became an executive producer for a Western sci-fi movie that's winning over film fests at an age when her contemporaries are retiring. She's also the owner of Square Tree Publishing, bringing literary text and targeted curricula to a global marketplace for the past decade. So anyway, Sherry, that sounds so exciting and pretty incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Well, the publishing house is just on fire right now. It's pretty wild. Sometimes they say it's not an overnight success. It was 20 years in the making, and I really feel like that. I feel like it's not just the business that's doing well, but I had to break off false mindsets. I had to come into who I was supposed to be, to show up the way that I was supposed to be. And I feel like when I started doing that, that things just started happening even more and more.
So you're helping writers to get published.
Yes, we are helping Christian authors that want to do any kind of books. So it could be fiction, nonfiction, memoir, it could be any type of book. Square Tree Publishing has been in business for between 11 and 12 years now. And I feel like we've just hit our stride. And they always say, an overnight success is 10 years in the making. And I feel like it's not just in the making of the business, but it's the making of the person. I feel like I've come into a new season, a lot of character buildings, a lot of heavy trials that I went through. And coming out of that, I think has positioned me for the success that is now happening.
What kinds of trials did you go through, if you don't mind?
I gave God my yes. And when I did, I just felt like a Job experience, like all hell broke loose over my life. So, every single one of my family members got sick. Two of my kids were in the hospital, one with surgery, one with 3 blood transfusions.
Wow.
The dream house was sold and that was gone, the financial fallout of that. So I felt like every time I tried to come up for air, I was just getting hit with another wave of things hitting us. And so it was thing after thing after thing where I really had to get some really deep roots in God and just still continue in that faith journey of believing that He's got it and I'm going to make it through this season.
And then you also produce films?
Yeah, so we just started Square Tree Productions. And so one of our films is called Infinity System, and I'm an executive producer on that. And we currently have it in 2 film festivals, and both film festivals were up for awards. So I'm really, really excited about that. So that's coming up soon.
So have you been in the film industry before, or is this the first?
I did. I come from an educational background. I have 25 plus years in education from middle school, high school, college, inner city Los Angeles during the Rodney King riots. And then worked my way up to the college level. And so when I ran programs, I created a teen pregnancy prevention program that landed us on Good Morning America, Home and Family Show, and Japan TV, and all sorts of different stuff. So that was part of my past. And then it kind of went away during those rough, what I call the wilderness season years, when I just got plummeted by thing after thing after thing. And now that I'm coming back out, film and television's coming back again. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's amazing that you were able to do that after all of that happening to you.
Yeah, so it's been nice. It's been fun. It's been a fun ride. So
And the movie's sort of a Western, right?
it's a
I watched
Western
the show.
sci-fi. So think a clean Westwood meets the Matrix.
Oh, wow. That's
So
incredible.
they're kind of like in this simulation of seeing if they could populate Mars and they have to prove themselves. So it's in a Western setting and you don't know who's in the simulation and who's real.
So are you planning to put it into theaters and or streaming or something like that?
What we'd like to do is a TV series because it really lends itself to a TV series because we have lots of content for it.
Uh-huh.
So we're shooting for a TV series for it.
Wow. And you kind of had a topic that you wanted to discuss called Miracles Are in a Mess. Do things with excellence instead of unattainable perfection. Man, I I know a lot of people that really strive for perfection all the time. I can't say I do, but
I know I did. So reformed perfectionist. I,
yeah,
I think a lot of times in the pulpit, in our community, they always say, do it with excellence, do it with excellence.
hmm
But what that really means and translates many, many times is you have to be perfect. You have to get it just right. And you're not going to get it just right. And you have to let it go. And so I love to say the miracle's in the mess. If you take Jesus and the wine, it was a wedding, and the worst thing in that time was like to run out of alcohol at a wedding, and they ran out of the wine, and so he had to make wine from the water. That was a mess that he cleaned up basically, and then
hmm
the feeding of the 5,000. You've got all these people out there, and then how are you going to feed them? That's really messy. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I noticed that people that try to be perfectionists end up sort of like keeping themselves from doing the things that they want to do. I mean, it prevents them kind of, because they're
yeah,
procrastinating, trying to be so perfect all the time.
or they're afraid to take a risk for fear of failure.
hmm
But sometimes, our biggest failures can turn around to our biggest successes. If you don't make mistakes, if you don't fail, even in your faith and stepping out in what you think God's calling you, and it didn't quite turn out the way you want it, you could still pivot and you could still keep going. And I love the story of the parables of the talent. And we talk a lot about that, like, oh, well, the first guy had 10 and then he got 10 more and then he got 5 and then got 5 more. We always think about that in a linear fashion, like, oh, he 10 and he got 10 more. And
Yeah.
in life, I don't think it's like that. I think he probably got 10 and then he got 11 and then maybe 12 and then he went down to 8 and then he got 15. And by the time he was done, he got 10 more, because it's not this trajectory of like, yeah, you just got 10 more. It's kind of this up and down,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you still have this upward trajectory on it.
Yeah, I think if you've been around over 50 years, that you know that you're going to have a lot of successes and a lot of failures, and then you learn from the failures too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a lot of failures.
How
So,
about we all?
yeah.
Yeah. Some of us are still in that mode. But
That's
it's the journey that counts.
It does. Well, it also is, what did you learn from your failure and pivoting? Are you able to pivot and keep moving forward after you failed? I think that's the big takeaway.
Yeah, definitely, because people will quit and then just think they can't keep pursuing what they want. You've got to be persistent if you want to achieve a goal.
Yeah, for sure.
So are you located in Los Angeles?
I am in Orange County actually,
Oh, okay.
but I'm pretty North Orange County, so I'm kind of on the border.
I actually went to school in Orange County, so I know all about that. What do you have coming up next?
We just got done with the challenge. It's the Calling Out Your Book Challenge. It's for anybody that wants to write a book, any type of book, pretty much, almost all the genres. We don't do horror or erotica, but anything else that's clean, we do. And then we've got the movie coming out, so I'm excited about that. We're, going to start pitching to Netflix and Amazon and all those different venues for that. So it's pretty exciting times. Just anybody that feels called to write, to be an author that's a Christian, we're here to help and to equip and to get the books out, because there's so many books out there nowadays that are just horrific. And so we need to flood that market with
hmm
really life-giving books that
Oh,
are,
I see.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the over 50 demographic that are, they want to write a book based on their life experiences. What would they need to do if they wanted to work with you?
We have a website, and it's www.squaretreepublishing.com.
Uh-huh.
And then at the very top, there's an application button so they can apply to work with us. And a lot of people at our age would like to write memoirs. I get a lot of women actually that want to write memoirs.
Uh-huh.
And I want to just encourage you that if you're writing a memoir, that there's 3 different phases of that. The first one is you write through the hurt,
hmm
then you write through the pain, the hurt and the pain. And then you get to a point where you can write to help people. But you have to work through the different phases of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hurt to heal to help. So those are the three phases that usually people go through when they're writing a memoir. And a lot of times I feel like God's called a lot of people to write memoirs, especially women,
Mm-hmm.
because not to sell maybe a million copies, but to bring healing to their own lives for what they've been through in their own life.
That's interesting. I like that. Those steps that you take. I think that's a good tip for anybody out there writing that type of book.
And another tip is as you're writing, there's your right brain and left brain.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay in your creative brain to flow. So don't try to edit as you write. Just get it all out. If there's spelling mistakes, if there's editing, just leave it alone and just get it all out like a stream of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, like a day later or later that day, you can go back with your editing brain and go in and start editing it. But
Yeah,
too many people try to edit and write at the same time and it messes you up. And I think that's where you get some writer's block coming in, is because you're trying to do two things at the same time. So if you just stay focused on getting it out, getting it out, getting it out, and then go back and edit it, that's a really good tip for people that are just starting to write.
that's great advice. I'm sure that comes from your teacher experience.
Yeah, yeah, for
Did
sure.
you teach English or did you just kind of do an overall thing?
I actually taught math and then I
Oh,
became a counselor. So I have a counseling background as well.
great.
And one thing that we've learned is, I got some rock solid Christians that were freezing up at the very end publishing, and
Mm-hmm.
it was all revolved around mindset stuff, fear of failure, fear of being known, fear of success. I mean, you name it, whatever fear that was, they were getting, locked up at the end. And so I brought on Dr. Amanda Hellman, and she is our author breakthrough coach. And so she's come on board to help unlock people so that they can get to the next level, so that when they hit publish, they're set and ready to go. So that's been a really unique offering that we have that nobody else has, is bringing in somebody that has a breaker anointing to break off anything that is holding them back, either
Mm-hmm.
personally or in their writing. It can be either one, because both are equally important as you go to publish.
Right. Good. That's excellent advice. My audience, where would you like to see them connecting with you?
I would love them to start writing. I think writing is very cathartic. It's very healing. Sometimes people have told them, oh, you can't write from hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start writing and getting that stuff out, I think at our age, a lot of times we've pushed down the past and it's like, oh, I'm just not going to deal with it. And then we raise our kids and then we become empty nesters and they start moving out. And then it's time for us to deal with our stuff. It's
Yeah.
time at that time, some of that stuff may come back now because we're not as busy, going to 3 soccer games each
Yeah,
Saturday as
right.
like I was.
I think we all
Um,
were, yeah.
yeah, or baseball or football, you name it. Basketball, you put in the sport, or gymnastics or whatever it was. It's time for us to deal with some of that stuff and find healing, because as moms, we're always taking care of other people, but we're not always taking care of ourselves. And I think in this season, it's time for us to finally find that healing that we need to move forward. And I think writing is a good way to start doing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Can you give us your website again?
It's squaretreepublishing.com. And on any of the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, it's Square Tree Publishing. So it's the
Great.
same no matter where you go. Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sherry.